Hello, welcome back to BlenderSushi live noding. In this video, I'm going to improvise a little bit. It's basically I want to take you through sphere chalk in kind of a to create this kind of setup. It looks like a bunch of random edges lines, but it's actually if I reduce the randomness, it's actually something that looking like a star. In fact, it's not actually this kind of star. It was actually like just like a bunch of circle. I'll show you real quick. This is actually, you've seen this already. I'm like separating all the edges and then make the edges longer, so you get that kind of design. It's kind of like a surprise. It's always like a surprise whenever we make something in sphere chalk. You can also get that kind of pattern, but one thing you should know that we can also create randomness and bake it as something like that. So it's like a generator for kind of randomizing shapes, like a simple shapes. Sometimes that's actually all you need in order to create an interesting design. You don't need like a complex complex structure. Sometimes you just want it like a 2D even. This is I think slightly 3D because of the randomness. It's in the XYZ. If I delete the Z, it's just random in the X and Y. Let me increase the randomness. So what's interesting about sphere chalk is that we can actually use there's something called intersect node, and with intersect node, if you have like two kind of edges intersecting each other, you can easily separate this into different parts. I have not used this for a while, but let's have a look how it goes. Yeah, that kind of design is something that I want to show you today. It should be pretty simple if you have watched me doing it many times. What's cool is that we can actually create a kind of like a gridify kind of a structure. Imagine this is a 3D cube. You can create something that looks like just like a cage mesh of this 3D cube. Yeah, let's give it a try. File save as. This is just like a boxes or square, random square grid. Let's go switch to sphere chalk. Imagine if someone asks you, "Hey, I wanna make like a square or like a rectangle, and then I want to make a bunch of them. How do I create that in sphere chalk?" You should say it's pretty easy. You just use circle. There's probably others, and like n-gon maybe, and then we use the fewer draw. And let's have a look. So n-gon or circle, they're pretty similar. Actually, with n-gon you can have this randomness already, but we're gonna use circle to do that. And we're gonna use the edges, and let's switch this to only 4 points to make it simple. And we probably need to rotate it. Rotation, and let's use the vector. So how do you want to rotate it? Z, it's the z-axis. The center should be 0, 0, 0. Angle should be 45 degrees. So we have kind of rectangular. Okay, now, but you want to have a bunch of them. How do we do that? It should be easy. We should use plane. They call it plane, but I think grid is also the same thing. Because in Blender, plane is a plane. It's called plane. It's not a grid, but a grid is more like, more like a grid. it has a wire, so maybe we can use this plane to duplicate our circle. Matrix in. Normally, always to make duplications of the mesh data, I use the matrix just for the preview. So now we have 4. You can have more. Okay, that's really pretty simple, and you either have just the edges or you can also have the polygons. Just plug this guy in. If you want it to have random colors, you can use cycles and then set vertex color. Vertex color new. That's should be pretty simple to do. But for today, we're gonna be dealing with edges only. And let's have a look. If we actually bake these now, we get 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we have a bunch of them like that. But if you want to kind of randomize the points of this guy slightly, we can use, there's a couple of things that we can use. We can use probably just randomize input vertices. This is the easiest one, I guess. Plug this guy in, plug that into the vertices, and they should be kind of being randomized. If you want to have a different random, then you can use something like random number generators. How many do we have now? We have 7 times 2 is, we have 14 square rectangles. 14, so, and then plug this into the seed. Now this is something that's kind of like a gotcha for me sometimes. It doesn't work right away, and if we actually use a viewer bmesh viewer draw viewer bmesh and use the vertices here and the edges and the matrix, normally this would work right away, but I probably did something wrong. No, this doesn't work either. So how do we solve this? So we have a 14 matrix. Sometimes the solution is to use list join or list slice or list repeat, because we want to we want to separate data for these guys. So perhaps we need to list join the matrix. And this doesn't seem to work. Maybe we need to list join in here. List join. If I failed again, I might need to use I need to quickly look up my other file. So why is this one working? So let's have a look. In here, I'm actually using apply matrix to the mesh. There's a vector out, vector in. I'm using random number generator, list length to the plane, list repeater for the edges, plane matrix. So apply matrix to mesh should be the one that's helping this to happen. Let me try this guy. Okay, this actually works as well. So we don't need to apply matrix to the mesh. This one is gonna join the result. So why is this working? Pretty interesting. So random vector, so we have circle, 4 vertices, can delete the rest. I'm gonna save this as JSON real quick. Export random square. Save. I'm gonna open the other file, the one that's failed. Let me think a little bit. Random input vector vertices. My guess is that we need a list repeat, but let's just reload that node 3, import the random square, and this is from the other file. Let's color it red. So this seems to work. Why is that? Let's investigate. This is sometimes kind of useful when you are learning Sverchok and then trying to figure out why it's not happening. So here I have 99 of this guy. Maybe make it 2 by 5. So we have the plane and then we have matrix in. If we cut this guy, we're seeing nothing. If I plug this into the edge, we only see 1. So list repeater is needed. There's a vector out and vector in, and there's this add random vector. Random vector mk2. This is, I'm randomizing of input vertices. Perhaps this guy, randomized input vertices, does not do the vectorizer, but random vector kind of does it. So instead of using random input vertices, we're gonna create our own randomness. So let's hide this cheat node. Back to this guy. We want to randomize the vertices, so the secret is to use vector math, and then this add, plug this original one, and then we use a random vector mk2, plug this guy in, plug that guy in. The funny thing is we only need to provide 4, and then this one is kind of vectorizing it. Let's reduce the scaling. So now indeed this one is working and pushing our square. We don't need to have many, because if we increase it, you see it's generating the points that we don't need. That's not what we want. What we want is to randomize the seed, and to randomize the seed we can use this random number generator. And how many do we need? Maybe a couple. So you see how now it's working. You can see the points is all kind of random and unique. What we need here is actually the edges. That's the one that's often got people confused. Why is it not working with the edges? You need to repeat the edges, because we have this all these points with random points, but we don't have the edges. The actual edges indices data is actually the same. There you go. That's and we need 14 of them, and we know it's 14 because we need to get the total number of the transform matrix. Currently it says 14, and we can use this length for that. Let's grab that and debug it. Stethoscope debug 14, that's correct. Just collapse this and then use this length, just plug this into that guy, and then 14 also for this guy, and the count is actually from the vertices, the total number of the vertices. Let's check it out. Stethoscope, plug that in, say 14, it actually say 4, plug this into the count. So the count matters, and then they are always like interrelated to each other. Now if we check, okay, seems to be working. We can have as many square as we want and it should still work nicely. Cool. Yeah, this is probably the basic concept I want to give to you. The radius we can control. Obviously, this is actually a circle originally. We can change the angle, increase the randomness. See, this is something that you might see in the people making using a program like processing. Processing is processing output is always a vector unless it's being rendered as pixel. It's and processing can generate something like this quite easily, but processing is using code and either Java or JavaScript. There's also the Python version of processing, and it's kind of can do the same thing like this. I think with processing, it's code based, and then people who are really good with processing can generate algorithm. In fact, this kind of thing we are using nodes is pretty much like kind of like algorithm as well, because we are passing data from one node to another and hoping to generate something like this. But it's there's something unique about Squarechalk that I like. Things like the way we can kind of put an idea into this like a block of nodes, and we can kind of easily make randomizations like this. Okay, that's with the square. Let's make it like 4x4, so we have 16 of them. Like I said, I want to show you how that we can actually use the intersect nodes. Currently, if we bake and look at it, they are separate. Sometimes you want it to be separate, sometimes you want it to be like a single object. To make it single object, you either use the BMS MK2 and plug this guy in with the matrix as well. So BMS MK2 can actually, okay, it's outputting separate objects, but you can also merge it, so it's a single object. You can use that, or you can also use join mesh join. Actually, not mesh join, is apply. Actually, there is one more. Join triangles. Let's join. I think it's apply matrix to mesh. There you go. That's this guy is what I want. Vertices, edges, and matrices. It's calculating. So these nodes can be a bit slow. This output should be joined together. Sometimes this node can be pretty sensitive. We probably need to use unwrap. See, if we use unwrap, this is actually more correct because of the number 16, 1, 16. We only have one. No, we need to unwrap it. So this node is very sensitive for that reason. If we bake it now, it's a single object. So that's something you need to know. Now that we have a single object, we can actually use intersect edges. So plug in this guy into that guy, and hopefully this guy is intersecting by some kind of magic. They're not intersecting because they're like not overlapping. I need to get rid of the Z value in this randomization. Vector out, vector in. X and Y, but the Z is 0. So you plug this in, and now our random is they are flat on the ground instead of randomized in the Z axis. Okay, so this seems to be working. Just polygon faces. At this stage, if we bake it, we get something like this. But you know that in Blender, there's something cool about it. If you go to edit mode and then you select all these, and then you can fill hole. And with the fill hole, supposedly you can fill the hole. Wait a minute. Let me check. So maybe you need to select the edges and fill holes. Doesn't seem to work in this case. Because all the edges are separate. Interesting. Okay, then we need to remove double then. Remove double actually merging all the points. Just a little bit of with a little bit of distance. Now if I delete everything again and then bake it again. Select this guy, go to edit mode, fill hole. Now it's working, you see? Can increase it until we fill all the holes. It's not always perfect, but this is pretty good. The intersect node can be, sometimes you get like a cleaner result. It's not always. You can actually check it by outputting using a fill holes node in Spreadshirt. I talked to Spreadshirt developers the other day, and then in my live noding I always try to see how many combos of nodes I can create. So far it's always pretty much under 30 nodes. I don't make it like too complex, like 50 nodes or 100 nodes. If the if a setup is that complex, maybe it should become like a modifier in itself. It should, but that might happen, you know, because it's pretty simple. It's just like under 15 nodes, and what I'm always showing is always pretty simple anyway. So I'm outputting the result of this. Plug in the edges. Yeah, so there you go. 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have a bunch of polygon resulting in this. Maybe our random can be randomized. Yeah, sometimes we get like a perfect kind of intersections. Sometimes a little bit complex perhaps to generate. So yeah, quickly you can create this this kind of abstract abstract looking structure. If I bake this, for example, this is a single object. Now let me check. Back to object mode. Select this guy. This is actually, yeah, this is actually a single object. And with a single object, you can use wireframe modifier. and you can actually print this out. I don't know, it's a nice pattern. You can also perhaps randomize the vertex point. Let's do that real quick. I haven't been using the vertex color, but this is quite powerful. I think who made this? I think a couple of developers of Spreadshop made this. Linus made this. I think he enhanced this node. We want to output a real object, so use Fever Mesh. Turn off the preview. Now we have this guy, and we can randomize the object. Let's plug this guy in. We need to switch to cycle renders. Color. Okay, color we can use random. I have not used random number generator with color. Actually, this could be interesting. Vector in. So because color is RGB, so we're gonna use this guy. Float between 0 and 1. Seed size should be 1. I'm using different seed for each one of these. Okay, let's for the index, we're gonna colorize the face. So for the index, we can also use random number generator. So integer index. I believe it's. Let me check real quick. Stethoscope. Random might actually repeat. The number in random can repeat, but if you don't want to repeat, you can always use a list. It's a list filter, or might be list modifier. Yeah, list modifier and set. If I'm not wrong. You see, with set, we don't get a repeat. 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 9. Yeah, we don't get a repeat there. So we can probably use that. Anyway, let's have a look. I think I just make things a little bit complex, but that's okay. So we are in cycle render. We should, let's create a material, cycle material. Where is our material node? View all. Oh, there you go. And we want to use the vertex color, so use the attribute ID. You might notice that there's I have a Pixar node here. I just installed render the other day. I haven't used this much. I will use it more often and might become one of my live noding. Color, Spreadshop color. So SV color is the name of the color. We plug it in. So back to Spreadshop now. Let's have a look how it's when rendered. Okay, it looks like this. This guy. Why do we have only one color? Maybe I forgot something. Maybe because I only have a single color here. Maybe I have two. I will use integer here to plug into this guy. Let's say I make a 20 random color or 40 random colors, and now it's starting to do something. I'm increasing the number here. Here actually I'm using a random number generator that it's not actually what we need. It's not actually what we want. We want it to be like a proper index from 0 to the last vertices, from 0 to the last index of the face. So range integer should do the job. So what's the last, what's the number of faces we have here? Let's use a list length. Plug in the polygon there and let it calculate the total number of faces. Stethoscope. $77. Plug this into the stop. Actually, it should be the count. Maybe some colors is actually too dark in here. Let's try again. Range, start, step, start and stop. Can colorize the vertices, the face, and the face seems like not quite happy with this geometry somehow. Let me check something. Randomize the seed. Seems to be working alright. It's not painting some of the face. We have 82. Let me check the length of this guy. Zero until 81. So 82. Supposedly this actually works. Maybe I use this shuffle. This should work. Let me try on the torus object. So instead of this object, I'll select the torus and then assign the material for our cycles. So with the torus, the index number should be that's 103, 400. That's really interesting. Oh, maybe we don't have enough color there. Ah, the number. I forgot to plug this guy into that guy. So now if I use the object again, back to this guy, now it works. Just now the total number of color doesn't match the total number of faces. That's why not all the faces get the color. So now this is working. It's very, very nice. The setup itself it looks complex when if you never use Virtual, but in reality this is like really as simple as you can possibly think of. If you're not using programming or you're not using script, this is actually can be difficult to imagine. But think of it like this. This is simple because it's first of all, maybe I should write it down. If you really wanna, sometimes it's a good idea to note it. So what's happening here? We start with a circle node, and we know that we can kind of duplicate the circles using the matrix. So we have bunch of circles. but the circle is become like a bunch of squares, and we randomize the square points in x and y axis, not z, so it's flat. And then we use intersect node to find intersecting edges, and then we use a fill hole to fill and the polygon. So whatever we see like points that creates a boundary, it will create polygons, and then colorize the polygons randomly using random list generator, and then pass the color as vertex color for cycles. This is actually the recipe. This is the procedure to make abstract color abstract square. Yeah, I don't know what, I don't have a name for this yet. But what's cool about procedural setup is, like I said, we can always randomize the seed. You know, randomize the red color, randomize the green color, or randomize the blue color. We don't have the handy HSV RGB thing in SpreadShop, but we can easily create that using script node. But this is pretty good, I guess. Do we have RGB thing? We should have it in as a script node somewhere. But yeah, so instead of, see, at this point we can basically play around with this, increase the radius, or maybe randomize the circle. See, this is just what we start with, and then as I increase the radius, we start to get a more complex kind of design. And then maybe I have 1.7 here, maybe 2.4, 2.5, and then we can randomize the vertices, and we start to get an interesting shapes, which is kind of accidental. We can maybe randomize the step as well. Maybe that don't make it equal. We start to get all this kind of endless pattern. I think this can be slow, but and now currently I might have faces that's bigger than 9. 30. This fill hole can be a little bit slow actually. Yeah, but can randomize this guy further. The fill hole, intersects and fill holes is it's a little bit like expensive operations in SpreadShop, but that's not the point. Really, it's if you are using SpreadShop's add-on and Blender together, and you kind of you open up a lot of possibilities that you wouldn't do this unless you're asking like Blender developers. I know that I think most of Blender users are really good. They're very technical. If you can learn Blender, it's a must. Your brain is on a different level. What I mean, even though you can be more artistic but more technical, but I think most of really good Blender users understand the technical bits really well. That's compared to other packages where they're really kind of separating the technical part and then the artistic part. The technical people will make tools for the artists and then for them to work. That's a common workflow. But since for Blender artists, it's a more often you are like an independent artist working in a small team, or sometimes you just work alone, and that's why you need to have a higher technical skill. Yeah, where we are up to. I think I need to merge this maybe. Viewer BMS MK2. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I want to show you today. It should be just a square to make random squares, but the extra bit, like the intersection part and the color, is a bonus. If you have any comments or feedbacks, you can leave it down below. Just let me know what you think, or what you make using after you watch this video. Thanks again for tuning in to